This tutorial is designed to help you set up and sew out an edge-to-edge or pantograph pattern using your Navigator quilting system. I'm using a wireless mouse for this tutorial because I find it to be more accurate than my finger or the stylus. Let's get started. Let's double-click Enter, which brings us to our first prompt. Our first prompt is asking us to move the machine to the upper right corner of the sew zone. The sew zone is not your quilt top. The sew zone is about 4 inches above and 4 inches to the right of the actual quilt top. When your machine head is in this position, click Done. Our second prompt is asking us to move the machine to the front left corner of the sew zone. Again, this is about 4 inches to the left and about half inch up from the belly bar. When your machine is in this position, click Done. Now, let's move the head of our machine to the upper left-hand corner of our actual quilt top. With the mouse, locate Settings in the toolbar, go to Quilt Size, and let's tell the machine what size our quilt is. For this tutorial, let's say that our quilt is 37 inches wide, click OK, and 47 inches deep. OK, accept. Now, with your mouse, go to the upper right-hand corner of your screen and click Full View. All right, the grid is our quilt top, the blue box is our sew zone, and the crosshair is the head of our machine. In order to synchronize all of these things, we need to come to the Reposition tool, click Align Quilt to Grid, go to the upper left-hand corner of the grid, click Align to Quilt, and accept. Now you see that our blue box is here, our grid is within the blue box, and our machine head is at the upper left-hand corner of our quilt. I don't like where the blue box ended up, so I'm going to come to Reposition. We're going to drag and drop, and I'm going to move my blue box a bit. I'm going to accept that. There you go. I like what that looks like much better. Now we have to pick some patterns to put in our pattern pad. So we're going to come to the icon toolbar. We're going to click on the plus icon, which is our add pattern icon, and we're going to come to the pattern library. This takes a little bit of time depending on how many patterns you have in the library, but it'll eventually come up. When it does, it's going to come up with the default set to search, which lets us see all of the patterns in the pattern library. You'll be able to scroll up or down. Here you go. You'll be able to scroll up or down and see all of the patterns that you have in your pattern library. We need to minimize this search by coming to Match Any Checked Tag. Click on Edge to Edge. Now, only the patterns that I have tagged in my pattern library as an edge to edge will come up. So let's go ahead and choose 3-leaf clover, 5. Oh, say it's telling me that I already have it in my pattern pad, and I'm going to say yes. There it is. Let's pick ribbon candy, and maybe we'll find, where's another good one here? But you can see how I can scroll up and down. Let's pick Stormy. Oh, let's pick Skewed Squares, which is already there as well, but we'll do it anyway. Double click. It's going to warn me saying it's already there. I'm going to say yes, and done, because I picked some patterns to put on my project. We're going to go ahead and use Skewed Squares because I really like this pattern, and we're going to double click. When patterns come into our pattern pad or into our CAD screen, they come in attached to our head at the start point of the pattern. This pink triangle is the start point of our pattern. If I wanted to build my pattern from right to left, I could come to my Change Sewing Direction icon, click on it, and you see the pink triangle move to the right. But I like to build my patterns from left to right, so I'm going to bring that back. There it is, and I'm going to I'm looking at it saying I really don't like the size of that because it might be a little bit too big for the pattern I'm trying to do. So we're going to resize just this one pattern. To do that, I'm going to come to our resize icon. We're going to use the keypad. I'm going to leave maintain ratio on, and I'm going to change this height to 8 inches. And I'm going to preview and accept. And I like what that looks like. It's more in proportion to my grid, and my grid is at 4-inch increments no matter what size I make my screen. And I can make my screen bigger by coming to the zoom in. See how much bigger I could get it? But this increment always stays 4 inches no matter how big I get the screen. So I'm going to start to build my pattern. I like to use my mouse to do this, so I'm going to detach it from my head by touching it. To reattach it, if I wanted to do it with the head of my machine, I come to the claw icon. There it goes. See, it's attached to the head again. But I'm going to touch it and detach it. And I'm going to build my row by using the add repeat button. There you go. So there's my first row. I kind of like what that looks like. So I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to touch the second one that came in and bring it down. Now I have some options here. I can continue to copy this one row at a time, or I can group them and copy 2. So I'm going to group, come to group. I'm going to touch the top one and the bottom one. See, they both become one. Accept, touch, and copy. I'm going to grab the one, there it is, bring it down. There you go. And I can continue to do that all the way down. There it is. Bring it down. I think I might have grabbed the wrong one, but that's all right. It'll still work. There it goes. Okay, and I can use my mouse button to finesse this a bit, or we've got a new tool that's new to Navigator, and it is an alignment tool. But I'm noticing that my first pattern set is not in the right place, so I'm going to use my arrows and move it up. There you go. And just so that you can see what our align tool does, I am going to take this one out of alignment by a few. Do you see how I'm moving this one to the right? There you go. So it's out of alignment with my next 2 sets. I'm going to click on my alignment tool. I'm going to use the mouse. I can also use my sew head, but I'm going to use the mouse. I'm going to use the alignment tool, and I'm going to align left or justify to the left, and I'm going to place a line. My line is going to be right here on the edge of my quilt. There's a red line. Did you see that turned red? And I'm going to select patterns. And this is the one that's wrong. I'm going to touch it. It jumped to the line. Why not let them all jump? There you go. So they're all lined up on the left-hand side. I'm going to accept that. All right, I'm looking at this, and I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so we can see the whole screen. And I'm looking at it, and I'm going, I really don't like what that looks like. So, but we're going to make sure that it fits within our quilt group. So I'm going to take the head of my machine to the right-hand side of my quilt. Oh, and look, that's not too bad, because that's the right-hand side of my quilt. Okay, and I just need to align it a little bit, but I think first I'm going to come in here and I'm going to find my group icon. I'm going to group, excuse me, it won't, come on mouse, group, and I'm going to group this one, and this one. I'm going to accept that. And now I'm going to resize this to fit the quilt to my dimensions. And I like to sew off of my quilts. So I'm going to tell it that my height is 48 inches. And take maintain ratio off. And I'm going to tell it that my width is 38 inches. Click OK, preview, and accept. And there you go. And I can move it with my mouse, or I can use my arrows to get it how I want it to be. And I'm checking, and I like that. That looks pretty good because I'm sewing the same amount off this side of the quilt as I'm going to sew off on this side of the quilt. Very nice, I like that. I'm actually going to move it a couple more clicks to the right. And now I can only sew what will fit in my blue box. So I'm going to ungroup these by coming to the ungroup icon. I'm going to ungroup this one. There it goes. See, my starts all came to the left hand side. I'm going to ungroup the second set and the third set. All right, I can sew these first two rows. So I'm going to click on my first one. I'm going to go to group, and in my group icon I can group, attach, or link. Oh, you know what? I got ahead of myself. So let's cancel. And on this second row, let's click on it, and let's change the sewing direction on this second row. So I'm going to click on my reverse sewing direction icon. I'm going to go to my fourth row and do the same thing, and my sixth row and do the same thing. There you go. So now I'm going to be able to sew this direction, back down this direction. Okay, let's touch our top row, go to the group icon, let's link these two. It says select the pattern to be linked, then touch accept when finished. I'm going to touch my first row and my second row, and it drew a line right there. So what's going to happen is the machine is going to sew from the left to the right, sew down this line, and sew from the right to the left, and then it will be done with that set. I'm going to accept this. There you go. I'm going to click on this first set, and I'm going to tell it to start to sew. It's saying one or more queued patterns are outside the sewing area. DQ and proceed. I'm going to say yes. Everything that does not fit within that blue box is DQ'd. It's going to transfer pattern down here on the right hand side, and it's getting ready to actually let me sew. It's going to give me some prompts, and sometimes I help it. I'll bring the head of my machine really close to where I want it to start, so I don't have to wait for the machine to do it for me. I like to do things fast. And it's going to prompt me to allow me to thread trim, touch continue to start sewing, or stop to DQ pattern. What's happening is it's letting me move to the right position. Continue. There it goes. And it's going to give me the same prompt, but this time it's allowing me to bring up my thread, do my tie-offs. Always hold your threads when the machine starts sewing. Click continue, and there it goes. You're now sewing your first edge to edge. All right. There you go. Okay, because I don't want to wait for this to sew through the entire thing, I'm going to stop this. Okay? Because we don't have time in this tutorial to wait for it to sew the whole pattern. I'm going to stop it. I'm going to move the machine head where I want it to start sewing, which let's let it start right here. I'm going to bring up my thread, my bobbin thread. I'm going to do a tie-off stitch. I'm going to click start. Uh-oh. What did it do? I don't know. Click start. And it's going to prompt me. Do you wish to resume sewing the current pattern? I'm going to say yes. Do I want to continue from where the machine left off, or move to the point closest to the needle? Of course, I want to move because I actually moved the head of my machine. I click continue. There it goes. It's going to start. Takes it a second. There it goes. And we're going to watch it sew out. There you go. It's almost done. But the cool part about this is it's going to sew this pattern, and then it's going to come down and start sewing the second pattern. There it goes. Get ready. It's up. And come down. I guess I could have put it in a better spot, but this way I get to talk to you a little bit longer. There it goes. Here it goes. We're going to start our second row. There it goes. So you don't have to do anything. As long as you can link the two patterns together and you're able to sew more than one row, go ahead and link them and let it do it. Okay. Again, we don't want to wait for this to sew out the entire pattern. But I'll show you how I stopped the machine, and we're going to say this time that we had a thread break. So I have a thread break. I'm going to come to stop, and the machine's going to stop. Okay? We're going to cheat a little, and we're going to move to the left-hand side of the machine so that we can be done sewing. There you go. I had to move the head. I had to do everything that I had to do. Changed the thread. Made sure I've picked up my bobbin thread. I'm ready to start sewing. I'm going to click Start. Do I wish to resume sewing the current pattern? I say yes. And because I moved the head, I have to click Move. If I just had to walk out of the room and I didn't move the head of my machine, I could just continue sewing. Or I could have pushed pause. I choose to push stop all the time because I like these prompts. So I'm going to move, and the machine will start to sew. I'm going to make the machine screen a little bigger. There you go. There you go. We are done sewing this set. It tells me the sewing is complete. Okay, now in order for me to set up my next row, I'm going to roll the quilt. Okay, I'm going to leave something on my quilt that I can see as I roll it up. I need to be able to see what I'm going to sew next. So if I've already sewn this row out, the first two rows out, I need to be able to see a little bit of this second row. So what I'm going to do is roll my quilt. I'm going to bring the head of my machine to something that I can see on my actual quilt top. And we're going to say that it is, it's this point right here on this row. I don't know if you can see that. There it is. Okay, this is the actual point right here, but you see the head of my machine is up there. Now what I do is I'm going to reposition. So I'm going to reposition. I'm going to align quilt to grid, and I need to click on this point right here on the CAD screen. I click, I align to quilt, I accept. Do you see that the blue box jumped down? All right, there it is. I'm going to touch this third row, and it is going to allow me to sew the third row. If I would have rolled my quilt up higher, I probably would have had room to do 3 and 4, but I don't. So I didn't roll it high enough. But let's do that one more time so that you understand what I did, and I'll show you how to do it so we can sew both rows. I'm going to move the head of my machine to the position on the quilt that I can see, and again, the position I can see is right, let's make it be right here, this piece right here. I'm going to reposition. I'm going to align quilt to grid, and I'm going to click right here on the CAD screen. I'm going to align to quilt, accept. Okay, there we did it. Now we have enough room to sew out the 3rd and 4th row. Again, I'm going to touch this row, come to group, link, touch this 1st row and the 2nd row. There you go. There's my line. It's going to do all the rows together. Accept. All right, you're ready to start sewing again. Click this green, turn it dark green. There you go. You're ready to finish your quilt.